I'm sorry, Heat Nation, but y'all are crazy because I would never trade Tyler Hero for Lauri Markkanen.
How would you say something so stupid like that?
All right, relax. Okay. Of course I would trade Tyler Hero for Lauri Markkanen, but would I trade Tyler Hero and Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jr. and the first round pick? I don't exactly know, but obviously this was a pretty big topic on Twitter today after Zach Lowe, someone who actually is a reputable source, unlike Jake Fisher and all the other bums we've been talking about this offseason. Zach Lowe came out today and said that the Miami Heat are showing interest in Lauri Markkanen. And essentially, I read the full article because nowadays people only read a headline and they get misled. I actually think it's a real problem in our society. Y'all got to click the articles because basically he didn't say too much in the article. He just said that the Utah Jazz are likely looking to maybe move on from Lauri. That'll put them at the front of the tank job to get Cooper Flagg, the projected #1 pick in next year's draft. Plus, Lauri Markkanen is an expiring contract, so the Jazz don't want to lose him for nothing. So essentially, the Jazz do have some incentive to trade Markkanen, and the teams that are interested include the San Antonio Spurs, Sacramento Kings, Golden State Warriors, and now the Miami Heat. So the reason that I kind of think this is a dumb report, and I'd be hypocritical if I didn't say this, because all offseason I've been saying how stupid NBA reporting is because what are we reporting here? That the Miami Heat have interest in Lauri Markkanen? No. Really? The Miami Heat have interest in good players? So do 29 other teams in the league. Because I guarantee you, every single one of them would love to have Lauri Markkanen. I'm sure they've shown interest. Because we don't know what interest means. It could mean the Heat made a simple phone call to the Jazz. It could mean that, well, I don't know if that'd be true because, you know, Pat Riley and that boy Danny Ainge, they ain't necessarily on speaking terms, but maybe he had Andy call, but he might have just had a quick phone call with the Utah Jazz representation. He might have made an offer for Lauri Markkanen, or none of that is true, and the Heat are simply being used as a leverage play by the Utah Jazz to draw more assets out of, you know, the Spurs and the Kings to try to get them to up their offers. Now, the first person that I actually saw mention that this isn't a leverage play was my guy Adam Barai. He brought up a good point on Twitter who basically said, let me tell you why the Heat aren't being used for leverage. Why the hell would the Utah Jazz pick the Miami Heat, who only have one tradable first-round pick? So essentially, like, we can't beat other teams' offers, so therefore, why would they raise theirs? Now, at first, I kind of thought this was a good point, and I do think there is some credence to what he's saying because logically, it does make sense. But the Miami Heat are always on every trade targets list or free agents list, and they're always used as that team that people just want, that people use for leverage. For example, I remember Jalen Brunson. I got the articles right here. It was on June 29th. Where Chris Haynes put out this report. Y'all see the title right here, but in the article, he says that the Miami Heat have emerged as a dark horse to land Jalen Brunson via sign and trade as they've secured a meeting with him, right? This was on June 29th. And I knew this was BS because the Heat have no cap space. They weren't going to do a sign and trade. So I knew this was BS, which was confirmed because the very next day, after Chris Haynes said that the Miami Heat had a meeting with Jalen Brunson signed with the Knicks. Here's the article from ESPN that was on June 30th. So how the hell did the Heat have a meeting with Jalen Brunson scheduled on the 29th and then he signed with the Knicks on the 30th before the Heat could have ever met? That was stupid. That was a simple leverage play that Jalen Brunson's camp made up to scare the Knicks into giving him more money because they thought they could possibly lose him. So that's just one example of why it made no sense for the Heat to be a leverage play, but they were just because they're Miami and for some reason, because it's Miami, it's filled with stars, you know, from Hollywood to the basketball court. So they're always used as a leverage play for these teams. So I'm not necessarily saying that report by Zach Lowe is BS because, like I said, I'm sure the Heat are interested. I just don't necessarily means that. I don't think it means that the Heat are far along to land Lauri or have a real shot at getting him necessarily. Now, they might, and that's kind of what I want to get into the rest of this video. So if the Heat were to give up all of their assets, it would essentially look something like this. Tyler Hero, Jaime Jovic, and a first-round pick for Lauri Markkanen. It sounds like if the Jazz do move Lauri, they want to be blown away by the offer. And I do think this is an offer that is damn near close to that. Now, Maybe that's because I value Jaime Jaquez and Nikola Jovic a lot more than the Jazz do, which I'm sure that's possibly true. But it's kind of hard to gauge the value on these guys from other GMs. We do know, though, when Tyler Hero was drafted, Danny Ainge was with the Celtics, and he had a lot of interest in Hero back then. I don't know if that interest has carried over 5-6 years later. Perhaps it has. So maybe he still does want some Tyler Hero. We know they love their white people. They're getting 2 of them in this deal. Jaime Jaquez might be white passing, I guess. But this is potentially a deal that could beat those other teams. The only thing is, though, Barry Jackson reported that the Jazz prefer picks. And, of course, the Heat only have 1. I think the Heat might have 2, according to Fanspo. I think they could trade 29 and 2031. But I must be reading that wrong because everyone on Twitter keeps saying they have 1 first-round pick tradable. So if someone can explain that to me, please let me know down in the comments below. But either way, 1 or 2 picks, that's still not as many as the Spurs have or the Warriors have to be able to beat those teams' deals as far as picks. But I do like the young assets the Heat have. Out of those teams that he mentioned, I mean, who has a better young asset? Maybe is Jonathan Kuminga? Is he better than Jaime Jaquez Jr., Jovic? Right now, yeah. But I put out a tweet today that a lot of people, some agreed, some disagreed. I think Jaime Jaquez will be better than Jonathan Kuminga one day. Do other teams view that? Again, I don't know what GMs are thinking. So it'll be hard for the Heat to beat these other teams' packages, even if this is their package. Now, if other teams aren't offering their full haul, then I think that this full haul is something that the Jazz could be interested in because, like I said, it might not blow them away, but it'll get close. That being said, other teams can do better. That's kind of my point there. Now, obviously, Lauri Markkanen with the Miami Heat is an incredible fit. He's a guy that 2 years ago made his first All-Star game, averaged almost 26 points per night. And after that season for Lauri, I was interested to see how he'd follow up that year, whether that was a fluke year or not, because he jumped 11 points per game from one season to the next when he was traded from Cleveland to Utah. But sure enough, last year he was very good as well. Didn't make the All-Star team, but he still averaged 23 points, 48% from the field, and 40% from 3 on 8 attempts. So I do think he's a legitimate player. I think he's just one of those guys that wasn't great right away, needed some time to develop, needed to get into the right situation, and now we are seeing his full potential. And he's only 27 years old, so obviously he's still young, can still grow, and his timeline is perfect. I mean, Bam turns 27 in like 2 weeks. So I think it's a great, mix of a win now guy and also someone that you could build around the future with. So I do like Lauri Markkanen. He'd start right in at that 4 spot because we're missing sweet little Yovi, who I like as the starting 4 also. If the Heat are able to keep Nikola Jovic in this trade, maybe they don't have to give up the whole farm. I would be interested in seeing Jovic run at the point guard. Just run 3 tall guys out there. Get Jovic at the point. Whoever the hell at the 2, Jimmy, Lauri, and Bam. I think that's pretty tough. But anyways, that's besides the point here. But obviously, I think Lauri Markkanen can kind of continue these numbers as he goes forward. So I do think he's a legitimate player. Is he a superstar? Right now, probably not. Can he be one? Potentially. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm watching hella Utah Jazz games. We both know that's not happening. But what I do know is that Lauri's had some sensational games versus the Heat. One time I remember he dropped 38 points on her head. I remember there was that other game on New Year's Eve. Remember the one where Tyler Hero hit the full court game winner? Lauri was cooking in that fourth quarter, like matching us basket for basket and almost single-handedly carrying his team to victory. And I just want to let you guys know too, Lauri Markkanen is not just a white shooter. Like, he's very tough inside the paint. He's very physical. He provides that presence as a big man, which is something that I think this Heat team desperately needs. I've seen a lot of highlights going around on Twitter of him doing these nasty poster dunks, which, by the way, his nickname is the Finisher, which is so badass because he's from Finland and he's a tough finisher. So that's a beautiful nickname alone. But his nickname's the Finisher, so he's very physical. Then again, I've seen highlights of Myers Leonard doing some pretty nasty dunks himself. So they're both tall. They're both 7 foot. They both can shoot. They both have athletic dunks. But I don't want to compare those two because I think I'm really just comparing them because they're 2 tall white guys. They're not similar at all. But I don't think Lauri Markkanen is necessarily Dirk Nowitzki from the perimeter. So great player, potential to get better. But I don't know if I'd consider him a superstar just yet, which is ideally what you'd like to get if you're Miami, giving up the whole farm. Especially considering that he's an expiring contract. He's only making $18 million a year this season. And usually when you're trading for an expiring contract, they don't go for that much. because you always have the potential that they could walk in free agency. So most teams are hesitant to give up a lot of assets because you don't want to do that, and then the guy walks the next offseason. So I do think it would kind of suck for the Heat to give up all of these things with the potential that Lauri could walk. Now, maybe once they bring him in, they can sign him to an extension right away, not have to worry about that. But I can't operate under that assumption right now because we haven't heard that. So the expiring contract, there's goods and bads to it. Obviously, I just said the bad is he could walk. The good is, I mean, if he does walk, you're freeing up a lot of cap space. Even by trading for him and his only $18 million, you're still freeing up a lot of cap space because sending out Tyler, who makes $11 million more than Markkanen, sending that out, plus Hame, plus Jovic, you'd actually be, and only receiving Lauri $17 million, or $18 million, by the way, the Heat would be netting $17 million more in cap space right now. So that's an additional $17 million to the 5.5 of cap space they already have left. If I do some quick maths, that adds up to DeMar DeRozan money. And if not DeMar DeRozan, you got some money for Caleb and Hayward, maybe bring the band back together, plus Lauri. You'd be creating a lot of cap space. So if you do get Lauri Markkanen, there's definitely another move that you can make in free agency because now you also have cap space. So considering all that stuff, I know I sounded hesitant earlier, but when I looked at the contract he's making, getting Lauri for this year gives you a great chance to go all in for this season. Obviously, if you don't win it, things get complicated because you're going to have to pay Lauri a bag next offseason, but you'd have a pretty good damn chance to win it this season coming up. And whenever you have a legit shot to be a contender for 1 year, you can't take that for granted. Sometimes you just got to do what sometimes you got to do what you got to do and bite the bullet later on. But that's all I got to say for this video. So let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Would you give up the farm for Lauri Markkanen? What is the most you'd give up? Do you think he's a game changer? Am I tripping for not saying he's a superstar? Let me know all your thoughts down below. And as of this recorded, I'm officially exactly 100 subs away from 5,000. If you watching this, smash that button. It's free. Hit the like button as well so other people can see the video. And I'll keep coming to y'all with content every day. That's what we've been doing for the last 50 days straight now. So I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.